This is Lightning Power Lunch, presented by Reef Rum on the Lightning Audio Network with Dave Mishkin and Greg Linnelli.
I think a big part of our turnaround, it's kind of a group effort. It's not just the decor. You need the forwards to help them out too. But there's guys are getting more ice time and a lot of confidence in the group. They're playing with that, and so not afraid to make a mistake. But the group, there's just good chemistry back there with the guys, and so far it's worked out well for them.
Good chemistry with the guys. We like it with the guys. Lightning tonight against the Devils. Glad you're with us. Power Lunch Lightning Radio. Live version today. Able to get to your questions a little more frequently today. And not a ton going on, right, partner? Little birdie, right, was telling us maybe that same lineup today that we saw a couple of days ago. Maybe.
Well, first things first, how am I appearing? How am I sounding? We had a little technological hijinks. Okay.
Where are you? Are you in your hotel room?
We had to do a little duct taping before the start of the show,
good.
and we're live. So as long as I sound okay, I
think you sound good.
Hopefully impart some useful information. So the Lightning were scheduled to have a full skate today, or at least everyone to the rink. That got amended. It was a bit of a longer travel day yesterday. Like we taped in the morning. The team was still in Montreal. It was a bus to the airport at noon. I think I'd mentioned, when you're leaving Montreal and going to the United States, you have to go through the main airport. So it's a little bit longer, but they actually have it pretty well streamlined. Like we got through everything we needed to get through. It's a big group, of course. So it's not like me and you going, Greg. You got a huge group of people that they have to get through security and get through customs. We clear up there. We flew to Newark. The weather was gross. I'll tell you, we're lucky
snowing?
That we were in
Are
Florida. Well, it was snowing in Montreal, but it was just that cold rain. We also landed near rush hour. It just took a long time to get from Newark to our hotel, and maybe because of that, it was just a longer than normal day. Maybe also we're not close to the Prudential Center where we stay, so it would be a bus ride there in the morning, bus ride back. Coop was optional to the rink. So we got that information, and optional to the rink is actually apparently only the people who are not playing. So I didn't go. Most of the team didn't go. I did hear from Matt Laughlin, who's joined us before many times on Power Lunch. He is at the rink, and he reported who was there. So based on what he had said, it sounds like it's the same lineup in that Gonzalez was there, Finley was there, James was skating, which is good news. I didn't know that because we haven't seen him on the ice since he got hurt in the last home game the Lightning had before the road trip. And McDonough was out on the ice, but that is an indication that, McDonough, it's good that he's skating, but not playing. Matt did not relay who was the goalie. We haven't really heard anything on Vasilevsky, so I'm guessing at this point Halverson is going to back up Johansson, and Halverson is still with the team. Victor Hedman did not skate, but I believe they put Hedman on IR. Is that right? I'd seen something about Hedman is going to miss the next couple of games. It sounded like Victor had a setback. So they called up Declan Carlisle. I would expect same lineup as what we saw in Montreal, except Carlisle comes in for Hedman. And why would you change it? Victor is on IR. Thank you, Steve. Why would you change it, Greg? I mean, the Lightning played really well in Montreal with that lineup.
You want to keep it going. We've talked about the depth.
Other than having to accommodate for the player who got hurt. Right.
Yeah. The Vasi thing is going to be something, honestly, is a priority here. I mean, people are just going to monitor this because they feel like this is somebody who's had to watch himself a little bit more, maybe on and off the ice, how much he plays, what he practices, been dinged up a little bit over the last couple of years. And I think people are looking at that and saying, okay, he's played a lot of hockey. We know that position, there's a ton of wear and tear. And, we talk about the Lightning being contenders year in and year out, in large part because they have potentially the best goaltender in the game. I mean, let's be very fair about it. Kucherov, Hedman, Point, Cooper behind the bench, Julian as the GM. There's no question that all adds to it. But I think I can at least feel confidently saying this, The reason I always feel like the Lightning have a chance to win the Cup is because I know their goaltender can steal games and steal series. Now, I know what he did 3 years ago doesn't always necessarily apply to where he is today. I get that. But there's something of a security blanket that you have with your goaltender, knowing that there is a chance that Vasilevsky just outshines in that series or that run that gives you really an honest chance to win, even when you might not be the favorite to start the playoffs. You have to get there, of course. But to me, we can talk about the power play, we can talk about the face-off percentage, we can talk about depth, all legitimate, for sure. But to me, it begins and ends with the guy you have in net and making sure he's good. Because if he's good, partner, I'll figure out how to navigate the waters a little bit with a roster that's a little banged up. He's banged up for a long time. That's one of those things you just want to monitor.
Yeah, so first of all, we don't know if he's definitely out.
We don't know.
Like, I mean, the fact that he hasn't seen any action since basically they put him on IR, I would be surprised if he starts tonight. But is it possible that he just didn't go to the rink and he might back up tonight? I mean, I guess that's possible. As I say that, though, I think if he were backing up, he would probably want to see pucks. Mm-hmm. I think it's unlikely if he's starting that he would go because it was kind of the scratches. But would they just throw him in when he hasn't played in over a week, right? He played a week ago Tuesday. That was his last game. So the likelihood is that he is still not going to be dressing tonight. So what you were saying, it's kind of like which way is Greg going here? Is Greg concerned because it's been over a week, or is Greg like, whatever it takes? It's actually not concerning. It's good that he has this little something, because it did sound like it was a something. Let's get him right and make sure that he is okay. He himself has said, like, his body is not the same as it was when he was 23 and 24. So you can clarify that maybe for me or maybe for the fans. To me, this is not red flags. I mean, Coop said he's day-to-day. I think you just want to be cautious and make sure that he's ready. And if people were like, oh my gosh, what's his quality of play this year has been excellent. Like, he has played very, very well. And remember, he missed some time in the preseason too.
Well, that's what I mean. These things are popping up a little bit more. I'm proceeding with caution. So if that means I need to rest
mentally,
him for another,
you mean?
Well, if he needs to rest for another game or two, I'm okay with that. Like, he needs to feel good. And if that means, look, big picture here, understand Vasi is the key to a lot of this. So just, Johansson's been good. If you want to ride him another game,
and that's
or two,
the other part.
Yeah,
Johansson has delivered. And like, I was actually thinking about this. Like, why did the Lightning start Johansson? They never started him in back-to-back. I'm talking about in Montreal. They never started him in back-to-back games since he's been with the Lightning. That includes the first 20 games of 23-24 when Vasilevsky was out, right? We saw Matt Tompkins play in the second half of a back-to-back, or at least in one of the two when they had back-to-back. They only had 3. Johansson played in 17 of the first 20, but did not play in both ends of back-to-backs. I think the Lightning were like, we absolutely need this game. We do not want to go into a 5-game losing streak. And, there's no disrespect there for Halverson, but let's be honest. Like, he's had 1 NHL start. He's played in 2 NHL games. Johansson has way more experience, and Johansson had been playing well. Like, 1 goal allowed in each of the previous 2 starts where the Lightning lost 1-0 with an end. So they were like, JoJo, how you feeling? He's like, play me. I mean, I'm sure that was that conversation. And so they put him into a situation that he had not been in since he'd been with the Lightning, and only once in his NHL career, and he delivered. He had a great game again. So the fact that, you want to be cautious with Vasilevsky no matter what, but it's probably a little easier on the mind for the Lightning within the organization to know that Johansson has played as well as he has this year.
I think, listen, in the regular season, that's a big deal. Mm-hmm. Your backup needs to play, 20, 25, maybe 30 games. Some it's a 50-50 split. You know how I feel about a 50-50 split. If you're doing that, you're telling me you probably don't have a number one. You have a couple of guys who are equal, and maybe you have to figure that out. But in the playoffs, I need my big guy. The big guy.
Yeah.
Get the big guy. I need the big guy. So that's big picture. Not concerned. I'm watching that more so than anything else, because I think that is the advantage the Lightning have always had, Dave, over the last decade. Even throw to Ben Bishop. Most occasions, they've had the better goaltender. Doesn't mean that the team is better, but that goaltender can overcome some warts that you may have. So we'll monitor that. I do want to get to some questions because one of the things I've started to
Can I
see
just
a
say
little bit
one
more
thing
of-
we didn't
course
really
you
get
can.
to? Let me just get to one thing we didn't get to yesterday because it's kind of putting a bow on it, but also looking ahead to tonight. I've been very impressed with Scott Sabourin. He's played 4 games with the Lightning. You look at him and you're like, okay, he's 33 years old. The Lightning signed him. You figure they signed him for Syracuse. Like, he's a veteran AHL guy. I think he's played about 50 NHL games in total, and most of those came in 1 year with Ottawa. I mean, he's been a pro player for, let's just say, a decade and a half, approaching a decade and a half. So he's been an AHL guy. He's been an effective AHL guy. But if he comes up, it's for a game, at most, a couple of games, he's back down. You can understand the Lightning were like, we want this guy in Syracuse. He is going to be a leader in Syracuse. He's a good AHL player. He is tough as nails, which we mean, and he can be a leader in Syracuse. Okay. Everything that happened with Florida in the preseason probably opened some people's eyes. Like, look, this guy, like, he can throw them, right? He's tough, and he can help us in certain games. So they bring him back up. They had injuries, but they brought him back up in advance of that Florida game, but he played against the Rangers and scored. Remember that goal he scored against the Rangers? That was a snipe. Yeah. So it's like, oh, okay, this guy can really shoot the puck, even though he hasn't really done it a lot at the NHL level to the tune that, his stats are meager, let's just say, offensively. Then he has a great game in the at Florida game. We said Finley, Douglas, and Sabourin may have been the Lightning's best line in that game. Finley's game winner in the third. And then the Lightning come home and they get blown out by Vancouver, and Sabourin, I believe he took 2 penalties in that game. And I don't think it was just due to that. The Lightning got healthy, but they sent him back down. They call him back up for this Montreal game. And they did not have, other than James, they didn't need to call him back up, Greg. They made a choice to sit Gonsalves and sit Finley.
Well, that's where we're going with this right now.
Okay,
the Gonsalves thing is a lot of no. You keep going, but people were talking about the Gonsalves thing, and I think this goes.
Yeah, and Toronto's very unhappy about the knee-to-knee hit, which, if we want to get into that, we can, especially because Bobby McMahon got a 1-game suspension. He would have gotten a suspension just quick, and once you get a match penalty, you are getting suspended. The only way you were not going to get suspended is if the league rescinds the match. So the fact that he only got a 1-game suspension for the match penalty means that he got the lightest punishment for a match penalty. The only thing that would have done is to say, this is not a match penalty. We're rescinding the match and you're getting no games, which is kind of, I think, what Toronto wanted, because he was reacting to the Gonsalves hit on Dakota Mermis, who is injured. I think Berube said in a press, going to miss this guy for a month. He just kind of spitballed that. I don't know if that's official. Definitely a month, less than a month, more than a month. He's going to be out for a while. Nobody wants to see a player get hurt.
No, for
we can
sure
get
not.
back to that.
Yeah.
But Sabourin, what I've seen from Sabourin is nothing that would lead me to believe that he can't play in the NHL. Now, it's a very small sample size. I confess, if I saw him, it was briefly when he was with Ottawa, right? As probably a depth forward. But he can skate at the NHL level. He can get where he needs to get. Remember the forecheck that he put in on Ekblad in the one shift that he had in the preseason game? He came barreling like a locomotive train and blew up Ekblad before he fought. He crushed him on the forecheck. He can skate. He can shoot. He's smart. He has enough experience. He knows where to go on the ice. He's very reliable coming out of the defensive zone. I've been really impressed, Greg. And I understand, it's 4 games. I'm not sure he's eclipsed 10 minutes in any of the games, but he has fit in, other than taking the penalties, which hurt in the Vancouver game. But he has fit in very, very well in the Lightning lineup when they've been. So I thought that was kind of it wasn't the biggest reason why the Lightning won the game the other night against Montreal, but I thought he fit in, again, really well. And I am very curious to see if he can keep it going. And he's going to be in the lineup, presumably, again tonight, because he wasn't at the rink. It was the same guys, Finley and Gonsalves.
I know they're different. I know they're different players. It might even be different skill set. I think their job is going to be very similar, meaning Douglas and Sabourin. I think Douglas, I think that's the player he wants to get to some degree with Sabourin. A guy who can handle himself for sure, but also a guy who can play, who can skate a little bit.
He won the fight against Anderson, too, talking about sure. I mean, Anderson was like, we're fighting. Sabourin's like, all right, here's my left hand, right?
How does that taste? No.
Well, I mean, he didn't like knock him down immediately,
sure.
But I mean, he definitely landed that first punch. Yeah, he got it. He got it in.
I think he's just a better version of Douglas at this point. And does that mean Sabourin gets more of an opportunity, or do both play at some point? If you're playing the Panthers, do you want both of those guys in there? I think Douglas at this point is more of an extra if Sabourin is on the roster, because I think Sabourin does. But
they're going to both be in tonight, presumably.
They are going to be both, which is good. But I think if everybody's healthy, now look, somebody may be sent down, and I get that. But like if you're asking me between Sabourin and Douglas at this point, if I had to pick one, I think Sabourin does more. That might just be because he's a little more experienced. I mean, he's played over how many games in the NHL level? I mean, it's over 100, right? I mean, I think he's. Maybe it's not that many. Maybe it's not.
I don't think it's that much.
Maybe what is it? Over 50 or 60? Whatever it is, it's more than Douglas. So he's got more, I think, professional experience. Now, if you think Douglas eventually is going to be a guy who's really an enforcer and a real heavyweight in this league, and you feel like that's a guy you just want out there, I get that. I'm not sure we're there yet. That being said, I do think Douglas has shown that he can play a little bit as well. I just think Sabourin, if you're looking at
51 games, by the way.
Okay. If you're looking at two guys that basically do similar things, I think Sabourin just does it better at this point. And it's not a knock on Douglas. It's just where I think Sabourin is probably more of a compliment to him. So this goes into the next conversation. So you mentioned Sabourin, and by the way, I agree with you. I think everything I have seen from the guy, you love how he sticks up for his teammates. If you're a Lightning fan, you loved how he responded to the Florida Panthers in preseason. You get that. I think he's also somebody who is just willing to do whatever he can to stay in the league, as is Douglas, be clear. But Sabourin comes up and impresses. So then the one comment partner after the Montreal game that we got a lot into, which we didn't have a chance to break down on the airwaves because we got into some other topics, was that just this Gage Gonsalves situation where he was scratched, in the Montreal game. And I think that was unthinkable when the season began. We talked about Gage Gonsalves probably took the biggest steps in any player the second half of last season. He elevated his game to the point where he was put in a situation where he was a top 6 forward on this team for a decent amount of the start of the season. But it is also fair to point out that I'm not sure he's had the offensive production he was hoping for and that the team was hoping for. And that because of that, it got to the point right around the 30-game mark where the Lightning had said, okay, you're going to sit this game out. And I think when you become a healthy scratch, there needs to be some self-reflection about where this player is right now on your team. Now, not only is Gage doing that, but I think the organization, the coaching staff certainly is looking at it and saying, okay, what do we have here? What are we going to do here moving forward? Because he's still a young player. We obviously like his skill set. But this is a production-based league. It's very cutthroat in many ways. And I think it was one of the reasons why we had said Dominic James needed to be elevated in a top 6 role, and why Gonsalves, if he needed to bump somebody out of that, he was the most likely to be bumped. And we saw some mixing and matching. We saw Gage go on the fourth line. We've seen him on the third line. We have seen them move him around. But I am wondering, partner, what are we going to see from Gage Gonsalves moving forward? We don't know the answer to that question. That's a tough question for anybody to answer. But I am wondering, the sample size so far with Gage, probably like a lot of younger players, it's a lot of inconsistency. And if you didn't have as much patience for a Chafee or a Connor Geekie, and you sent them down, knowing that they had some options, well, Geekie for sure, does that apply to Gonsalves? And are you going to look to maybe bring a young guy up to see if he can do what you thought Gonsalves was going to do? I threw a lot out there, but I think these are questions people have, and I think it's fair to at least bring up, where do we go with Gage Gonsalves at this point, knowing that he was a healthy scratch? And I think that's a shock considering what he did last year and how things started where he was put to begin the year.
So I think last year he showed his best at that time. I think the Lightning were hoping that there was even more to come. But even if he had maintained what he showed in the second half of last year, I don't think that he would be scratched. So he's not showed that. So sometimes, you can just look at the points and you're like, where are the points? The points from somebody who has the skill set of a Gonsalves, like there's going to be more expectation maybe than for a different sort of player. But let's use the Gord line as a contrast, as a comparison. They may not score, but there's no disputing that they are positively impacting just about every game with what they are doing. They are doing what they are supposed to be doing, right? And yeah, you'd like to see Holmberg reach 15 goals. You'd like to see Yanni Gord get back to where he was in his first time with the Lightning, where, he eclipsed 20 goals. Gergensons, yes, you'd like to see them produce even more offensively, but they've produced some. But even beyond the production, that's why I'm saying, like, it's not only the numbers, it's what are you seeing? And I don't think we've seen enough of that. And the Lightning at this point probably are saying that based on this lineup decision. They need to see more of what Gonsalves can do well, which is play, make plays, be creative. If it leads to a goal, if it leads to, for him, if it leads to an assist for him, great. But if it doesn't, we see that you're helping us drive play and helping us create chance. And I just don't think there's been enough of that. That's a fair assessment. I mean, probably if you ask the player, he'd say the same thing.
So decisions, I mean, do you buy any of that? We talk about competition, we talk about the defense, and we've seen guys that are battling to be in the lineup, and some guys get sent down, some guys get recalled. I'm wondering if the same would apply there, and I haven't been following Geekie.
Well, he could be sent down.
So, I mean, is that one of those things where it's like, nah, let's just give him a game. Let's give him a couple. Let's put him back in the lineup, and let's see what happens. Really, the question is how much rope are you giving him? Yeah, I think that's kind of where we are right now. But I'm curious what our audience thinks at Bolts Radio. I know a lot of people, again, they want to see Geekie up here, and so you wonder if that is something that we end up seeing sooner rather than later. And Arrigo says, I see Coop trying to lift up Bjorkstrand on the line ups, but he is not on the level we need. How to overcome this situation? All right, so there's two answers to this.
Yeah.
One, you just keep playing in hopes that he reverts back to the player he was. I mean, that's the simple way, right? Go out there, shoot, keep getting chances. When you're not getting the chances, what do they always say, partner? You get concerned. I think he's had some looks, just hasn't finished. And I think the fact that the Lightning did trade for this guy, you're going to have a longer leash to deal with the lack of production. Now, look, if he goes the whole year and he scores 5 goals, I can almost guarantee you there is going to be a conversation in the offseason as to what they're going to do. Because
he's on an expiring contract.
Right. Well, so then there you go. It would be,
yeah,
you scored 5 goals. We're certainly not going to pay you what you were making. You may have to come down on that, and that's assuming they still want him. The other option is that you make a change. Now, I think this team is better when Bjorkstrand is playing well. And we saw that last year before the injury. But I also know, again, this is a cutthroat business. And this is about winning championships. And if you have a guy in the lineup who is struggling and is struggling to score goals, it is not uncommon for a coaching staff to make those decisions come crunch time. So to answer your question, there are 2 options. I lean more towards the former. Keep playing him. If this becomes so unbearable, partner, where he is just, it's tough to watch, then maybe you can go that route you did with Gonsalves and sit him for a bit and see what happens. But I think he needs to play his way out of it. And then if that doesn't work, at that point, John Cooper is going to evaluate what they need to do from a lineup perspective when it comes to him.
Yeah, I mean, I agree that he should stay in the lineup, and they've put him into a top 6 now that Point is back. So he's playing with Point in the line, did contribute a goal against Montreal where Bjorkstrand had an assist. He actually went to the bench before the goal was scored, so he got an assist but not a plus. He needs something good to happen. It's kind of like we were saying with Point. And so the difference between Bjorkstrand and Gonsalves is Bjorkstrand has the track record. Bjorkstrand has, whatever you want to say, more than half a dozen years of consistent production at the NHL level. You can almost mark him down for 20 goals every year with different teams, 2 different teams prior to joining the Lightning. So I think that's why he's continuing to get looks. Lightning fans are impatient. They're like, this guy should be scoring. This guy should be doing more. This guy only has 2 goals. I get it. And that criticism is fair. But, you have to rely on the fact that, this is not a size. This is a large sample size that speaks to reliable consistency in terms of goal production. So you have to believe, maybe you don't have to believe, but I believe that this is more of a confidence thing, and he needs a little good juju, as we say, and maybe that'll help. I mean, he's going to have to hustle to get 20 goals at this point because we're a third of the way into the season. He's got 2, but he can certainly score more than what he's produced far.
Yeah. Mytho says, is it a coincidence that when Hedman went down, the Lightning went on to stomp the Canadians? I love the captain as much as the next guy, but just an observation. Good to see Carlisle and Sabrin up.
So the first period was the Lightning's best period, and Hedman played in the first period. Just clarifying that comment, which I do not believe is accurate. Beyond that, yes, if Victor Hedman is healthy, the Lightning want Victor Hedman in the lineup. If Victor Hedman is not healthy, though, East are in a position where they don't feel like they need to play him at 80% or something like that, have him battle through something because they're so desperate for him to be in the lineup. They've proven this year that they have reliable depth. Or then reliable makes it seem like, okay, the geyser's not going to burst here. We have the bolts in place, so to speak. It's more than that. They're getting really good play from the guys who have come up, particularly on defense.
Sure.
And that includes Carlisle, who's back up.
Do you play differently when a player like that's not in the lineup? You'd have to go back and say, are they simplifying things more? I think that's the general comment without people really observing it, partner. I don't know if we can see with the eye test. Are the Lightning playing a quote-unquote safer game without Hedman in the lineup, knowing that Hedman can do things that nobody else on that team can do from the back end, which is skate with the puck and create some offense, perhaps. And again, we talk about analytics. This is where I'd have to defer to the coaching staff and their analytical department to see, are they seeing that type of trend? Be that as it may, they've had to play some games without Victor Hedman in the lineup, so they've had to adjust with that. Logic tells me you've got to play a different way when he's not in the lineup. The other thing too is that you have to factor in the human element. As I have a phone call coming in.
Yes, we are on live radio podcast streaming. Yes.
The other element is you have some guys who want to make a name for themselves in the NHL, so they are playing. They should be at their highest level to a degree. They don't want to come out of the lineup. There's a lot of combinations there. It has been, and I think, would you agree here? It's been a weird year for Point, Hedman, and Bjorkstrand. I mean, 3 of your top offensive players, they've just not been able to get on track. And why is that? I don't know. I don't. You could say some guys have just had off years before. That's fair. I mean, that does happen in all of sports. We give this example a lot of a hitter who's, let's say, a 300 career hitter, and maybe he has 1 year where he hits 275, or he hits 250, and things just aren't. He's not seeing things as well as he used to. I don't know. Again, this is where, if you want to look into the metrics, I can meet you halfway, and are there certain things you can see, and hey, he's not getting to as many pucks now that he used to. He's not generating. He's not pushing play as much. Don't know. Don't really care to look at that. I can use my eyes to see what's happening. It's just been an off year. Are injuries taking a toll? Don't know. Maybe. But it has been an off year for those 3 players. It's even more remarkable how Tampa Bay is winning games, and it's why John Cooper should be leading for Coach of the Year, in my opinion.
Yes.
Now, I know you like that pivot. Do you like that pivot?
This is the year. This is the year people around the league will notice. Hey, they don't have Hedman. McDonough's missed more than a month.
Come on.
Look at where the Lightning are defensively. So, I think you brought this up. Are the Lightning playing differently in the absence of these guys? So I'm going to give you an example. I know you remember this year well, Greg, because I think you were still in Pittsburgh at the time. This is the year the Lightning and Penguins played in the playoffs in 2011. So the Penguins at that point had Crosby, Malkin in their prime. They Malkin, but I mean they were right smack dab in their prime. Cup final in 2008. They win the Cup in 2009. They're shockingly upset in 2010 in a huge upset. They start 2010-11, and Crosby is unstoppable. I think if you look at the points that he had put up in the first half of that year, I'm not sure if it would have prorated to his best offensive year, but it would have been right up there. And he gets the concussion at the Winter Classic. Mm-hmm. And the Lightning actually played the Penguins a couple of days later, and Hedman checked him. He didn't whale him, but he checked him, and Crosby didn't the rest of the year. So they played the whole second half of the year without Crosby. Malkin, separately, also basically missed the whole second half of that year. So that is a situation, and Dan Bilesmelt won Coach of the Year that year, in large part because the Penguins just locked down. They became a terrific defensive team in the second half of that year. And they had the higher seed. I mean, they were the 4th. That was the division winners, and then 4 through 8 were ranked through the conference. So the Lightning were 5th, the Penguins were 4th. That's why they played in the first round. And for the Penguins to finish 4th in the conference, not get the division, the Capitals did, but still be the top team after the division winners, speaks of the kind of year that they had. But I think that was the example, that is an example and was an example of a team that changed the way that they had to play, because you're taking 2 of the best players on the planet that do so much for you. You're pulling them out long term. Yeah. This is not that. Sure. Now, first of all, Victor Hedman is 34, going to be turning 35 here in a week. Completely different situation. But I don't think even with the injuries, we can say the Lightning have changed the way that they haven't. They're playing the same way. They're playing the way they want, no matter who is in the lineup, whether it's, the guys that have been with the team or are new to the team. That's the difference. So I brought up that Pittsburgh team as a way to contrast. Like, I think that was a team that were like, okay, we need to change the way that we're doing things here. And Bilesman deserved to get that award based on the work that he had to do to navigate really successfully without not just two of your best players, two of the best players in the league gone. So the Lightning are missing key players, but it's different. They have not restructured kind of how they are doing things. Guys have taken on different roles. Radish is now doing a lot of the stuff that Hedman did. He's playing on power play 1. He's playing with J.J. Moser, right? Moser in some ways is taking on a lot of McDonough's responsibilities. Kind of that first matchup, lefty D, penalty killing. Just seeing guys take on different roles, then it really changed the way that they are playing. I don't know what you remember about that Pittsburgh team, but that one to me, because the Lightning saw them in the playoffs, I remember looking at the second half of the year, and it's like they were holding just about every team that they saw to 2 or less. It was incredible.
It's almost
they were not that team. Like before, with Crosby and Malkin, sometimes they held the other team to 2 or less, but they could score 5 or 6.
It tells me you can't win championships without your big guns. That's what that tells me. And the Tampa Bay, to their credit, did a great job scouting Marc-Andre Fleury because they had
in that series.
In that series, but they did a good job scouting the Penguins and Marc-Andre Fleury, as you know, going behind the net, but passing it where you just came from. And how many goals? I think it was Bergenheim that had a couple. He had a tremendous series.
With more.
He was fantastic. Yeah. Those 2 guys were incredible. So that's what I remember. Very interesting.
You remember the series.
I do.
Yeah, you remember the series. I was talking about how they got to the 4th seed.
Yeah.
At the beginning of that year, by the way, we're pulling Gino out for the second half of the year, and they had other injuries too. It's like, how are the Penguins going to do it? Well, they changed the way that they played, basically.
They had to. Yeah, that's a good point. Dusty the Dog says, yesterday, you talked a lot about Radish, and I agree with Dave. He won't be traded this year, but he will test the waters of free agency. My question is, do you think a team will pay him $5 or $6 million a year? And if so, I don't see us matching that number. You want me to answer?
So, Dusty, I don't know enough. Yeah, I don't know enough about how the numbers are going to play out. I mean, I can do the math. I can see that, first of all, the Lightning are saving, as we talk, re-sign McDonough. They're saving a couple $1 million on the McDonough contract from the current contract to the next contract, and the cap is going up. So they're going to have some room to work with here. Moser needs a new contract. He is restricted with arbitration rights. Assuming they want to re-up Destu, and at this point I think that would be an emphatic yes. He's only on a 1-year contract. And then you have Radish. Both Destu and Radish are going to be unrestricted free agents. But here's the thing. When you have a pending unrestricted free agent, you have the window before July 1 to get a deal done. And what tends to happen is if a deal is not done by July 1, the player is going to go to another team. So the way Dusty put it, the Lightning matching an offer, I don't think it's going to, I mean, maybe some days the Lightning are or Radish is thinking, I want to test the waters.
Yeah.
I think I can get this. If the Lightning aren't going to offer me this, I'm not signing. In that way, maybe you can say matching. But, there are other considerations for Radish or any player. Do you like it here? Do you like the team? Do you like your role? You may get a bigger contract elsewhere, but it's going to be a new situation, unfamiliar. What is your role going to be? So, I mean, the familiarity matters. The Lightning are also in a position where they can offer an extra year if they decide to do that, like they did with Gord, right? I think did Yanni get 7? Anyway, the team that holds your rights can offer an extra year. It used to be 8, and then another team can only offer 7. I think they bumped it back a year, so now it's 7 and 6. So, look, Dusty, I can't predict what will happen. It's going to be up to Darren Radish. on some level, and he's earned that right as a pending UFA. But what we see is it's not always for the player about where am I getting paid the most. You want to get paid, but there are other considerations as well. And look, the Lightning have a well-earned and accurate reputation of being a great place to play. It's not just the weather. It's not just the sellouts. It's not just the history of success. Players, how they are treated here. I mean, maybe other teams would have done this too, but let's not forget, Darren Radish spent, 2.5 days with his dad after the Lightning beat the Rangers? I mean, one of those days was an off day, but they were like, don't come to practice. Take that time with your family. I mean, you don't think that carried some weight with him?
Sure.
I'm just bringing this up as it's not always like term dollars. I'm a UFA. I'm testing the market because I'm going to get paid. If a player wants to look at it that way, that player can look at it that way. But that's not always the whole picture. And the fact that the team that holds your rights gets exclusive negotiating rights from the moment, actually even now, as we saw with the McDonough deal, but from the moment the season ends, if the team decides to wait, July 1, there's only one team that can negotiate with that pending UFA. And in this case, it's the Lightning. The Moser situation is a little different because he's restricted, even though he has arbitration rights. But I think both of them are going to get raises next year.
Everything you said is correct. I don't want to minimize the money component to this. That is a big deal. I said yesterday on the show that Radish may have the one chance here in his career to have that big contract. Not his only contract, but a big one. He's in the prime of his career. No doubt his most impactful because he's getting a lot of opportunities to play. Other teams see it. The cap is going up next year. That's going to impact him, whether it's here or somebody else.
Yeah.
Here's the X. Here's the X factor. How do the Lightning view him right now? They know he can play. Is he a top 4? Is he the, not heir apparent to Victor Hedman, but I just got done telling you, he's really their second best offensive defenseman. And if you think your best defenseman, and if you think your best defenseman offensively is maybe starting to decline a little bit, is it nice to have a guy who can fill in at times, particularly on the power play, which, again, I know it's struggled, but Radish is an option. So a lot of this, Dusty, is going to be how do the Lightning view him? Not as an NHL player, but as a legitimate long-term option to be in a top 4. I actually think that's more of the conversation. And I'm actually leaning more towards that I think he is part of this core group. Is it $5 million? That just kind of depends on where they are, and they may go long-term and spread out that money. And maybe that's enough for Raj to say, this is where I want to be. I could go chase another $1 million per year if I wanted to over the life of a 5-year contract. I'm okay here. So I think it's more about what the Lightning and how they view him, not as an NHL defenseman, but more in that top 4. And somebody who can do some things that Victor Hedman can do offensively because there aren't many options. That doesn't mean they can't go out and sign somebody, of course. That doesn't mean they can't trade for somebody. That can happen. But I do think it's something on the table, and he's a known commodity at this point. Alan says the chemistry on this team is getting better every game. Their ability to overcome mistakes is better than we've seen in recent years. I hope that Vasi returns soon, but JoJo is holding it down. Well, that is true.
Well, that is a completely different tune of a post than we heard prior to the Montreal game. So we don't want to be affected by recency bias, but generally I agree. Like after the start of the year, you want to say it's chemistry. Like the Lightning have put their work boots on. The Lightning have played hard, even in the games that they have lost. Their battle level has been where it needs to be. I mean, have they had clunkers? The 2 lopsided losses that they had, there was a lot of like weird stuff that happened. I'm talking about the home losses to the Rangers in Vancouver since the start of the year, which even in those opening 2 games at home, it's not like the Lightning got like blown out of the water, but They needed to play better. They needed to play with more urgency. Those two games are just weird games. Like pucks are going in off skates, off sticks, deflected, and it's like they turn around and they're down, multiple goals to the and then Vancouver like popped in 4 quick goals in the third period and that was it. But even in those games, I'm not sure that the Lightning, like they couldn't be faulted for not bringing a back. So I think that feeds in to the chemistry. There's no question this has been the best bottom 6 line. I'm saying this without hesitation. Gord, Girgensons, and Holmberg through a third of this season. Let's see if it can continue. And they haven't been together all year because Girgensons was hurt at the start. Holmberg missed 7 games or whatever it was later into the year. This has been the best bottom 6 line the Lightning have had since Gord, Coleman, and Goodrow. They've had some okay ones. I mean, Maroon and Perry in the Stanley Cup final with Belmar, like they did good work. They were right. I think the Lightning have been able to lean on a bottom 6 line like they've leaned on this Gord line, different Gord line, but with Girgensons and Holmberg. How many periods do they start with the faceoff? How many times are they out there for a matchup, which they are? How many times does John Cooper look for them to reverse momentum just by playing in the offensive zone?
You know what that
I'm not sure the Lightning have really been leaning on a line like that in the bottom 6, so that goes to the chemistry as well.
Chemistry, and they can skate.
Yeah.
Today's game, you need to skate. All 3 of those guys can skate. And they know their job. They keep it simple for the most part. I mean, they get in on that forecheck, make some things happen, but they keep it pretty simple, and they can all skate really well. I want to get to this read partner and then more of our audience. Tonight, enjoy some Refrum. Smooth, versatile, now pouring at Benchmark International Arena. Order a Tropical Wave or a Lightning Mule and taste why fans are switching. Refrum is a premium craft Florida local rum built on authenticity, quality, and easy drinkability. Ask for Refrum by name. Go Bolts. Please enjoy responsibly. All right, let's get to more. Jerry says, hey guys, just so you know, your Twitch notification always shows up as Bolts 6 versus 6 and not Power Lunch. I didn't know that, but
Neither
we will let you know. At Tall Geese 66, maybe? How do you guys read the Gonzo scratch? Change of pace for the player can be good, but I don't know how much development he can do in Syracuse anymore. I feel he needs NHL time to progress. I mean,
well, we
fair.
touched on this earlier in the show at the point where they would try and get him through waivers and send him to Syracuse. But right now he's on the outs in terms of the lineup, and he has to work his way back in.
Yeah.
And when he comes in, I think the Lightning make very clear what their expectations are, and I'm sure they've done that already as he's been in the lineup. But they need more from him. And it doesn't always translate to goals and points. But like they say, Coop was like, we want Steven Santini to be Steven Santini. We want Declan Carlisle to be Declan Carlisle when they came up. They need Gonsalves to be Gonsalves. They need Gonsalves to be the guy that led Syracuse in scoring 2 years ago, in that he used his strengths in a way that they are evident when you watch him play. That's how I would frame it. He is a playmaker. He's got a good shot. And he has not had the puck enough to be able to show what he can do, which he showed last year more regularly.
That's fair. We kind of outlined what's the best course of action for somebody like that. And I think at this point, maybe sitting out and then putting him back in to see if it changes might be the best until you figure out something else longer term. Scott says, Bjorkstrand looks lost, no confidence in his game. He's overthinking and not reacting. Would he benefit from sitting out a game? You could do that.
So on this one, I think scoring a goal was the best elixir for Bjorkstrand. I think that will help his confidence, not sitting out. But I don't make those decisions.
Interesting. What do you make of, in general, that notion of sitting out a game or two. Like, have you seen examples, most notably over the last 5-6 years, where a player who maybe surprisingly sat, was a healthy scratch, and then came back and they were great? Does it usually work? Because I think we say that, and it's like, well, it's a good mental reset. That's true, but how often does that play out the way we think it does? I don't know the answer to that.
If it happens, it's usually with a younger player. I mean, remember
That's
Stamkos'
true.
rookie year. Halfway through the year, they put
Yeah.
him on a schedule that he took off. But basically, it was every third game, I think. They wanted him to watch from the box and, take that in. I mean, Hagel was benched for half a period against Pittsburgh, and that lit a fire under him for sure. I mean, he was
That's a good point.
stinging about it. By the end of the game, he was like, I don't care about my 2 goals. I'm more concerned about the turnover that I had. And so in that situation, basically not being able to play, even though it was within a game, did have that effect. I don't know. That would probably be a question for a player. Sometimes when players are injured and they are watching from up top, they do say that, it can help them because the game is much slower from the top of the building.
That could help.
They're like, oh, I actually have more time to make a play, and realize, because when you're on the ice, the frenetic pace feels faster.
Call it Spectre here. Dave and Greg, the national media up north has been discussing the lack of practice time leading to more injuries and lack of consistency structurally because of the condensed schedule. Thoughts? I think the condensed schedule, if you want to draw the conclusion that that's leading to more injuries, I buy more. I don't know about the lack of practice time leading to more injuries. I mean, what's the
And I don't
thinking
even know, Greg. I don't even know, Greg, if we can draw that line between more injuries and condensed schedule. I mean, I know that we've touched on this earlier in the season. We don't have the data to back it up. We don't even know, there's no central, registry, basically, or central information bank of, man games lost for every team. You basically have to, go to each team and see if they produce it. I mean, the Lightning produce it in their game notes. Devils have more man games lost than the Lightning do, but how much of that is due to the condensed schedule? How much of it is just due to, hockey is a physical, sometimes violent sport, and guys get hurt? Dakota going to miss a month. Is he missing a month because of the condensed schedule or because Gonsalves hit him knee to knee, right? So I'm not sure about that. The quote-unquote structured play, I call hogwash on that. And the reason I'm calling hogwash on that is that, teams are defending. We're seeing
That's
the
true.
same number of teams, and maybe even more than usual in the first third of the season, that are defending pretty well. I mean, the Lightning are in that group. Lightning are 5th in team defense, 2.53 goals allowed per game. That's really good, but they're not the only team that's defending. So my counter question, my answer a question with a question, how do you explain the condensed standings? If teams were just, a complete mess, because they're we have no structure because we aren't getting enough practice time. We can't play well. How do we explain all these close games? And how do we explain all these teams doing well enough to be in the race? It'd be one thing if games were 8-7 every night, because that's really what you're talking about. Lack of practice time, lack of structure, breakdowns, goals against. To me, structure translates to fewer goals allowed. If you have fewer goals allowed, you're probably going to have closer games for both teams if the goals against number is down.
Yeah.
It is more likely to have an overtime game that's 2-2 than 6-6. I mean, we get the 6-6 sometimes, but usually if you're scoring 6, you're not giving up 6. If you're scoring 2, you're probably more likely to have an overtime game. So again, this is kind of me spitballing, but I don't know who in the North is well, lack of practice time, lack of structure. And, the schedule, being condensed does limit practice time. We just said the Lightning didn't even go to the rink today. They had a travel day yesterday.
Right.
But I don't know. That part is true. To this point, though, I don't know if that has really affected teams in terms of their on-ice performance.
It's fair.
And I just don't know enough about the injuries. I mean, that may be a question after the year. And, maybe the PA takes a look at it. And they're like, players are going down because we're asking too much of them. They are probably doing their own research on this and trying to determine if the schedule being bunched out. At the same time, the PA wants the Olympics, right? So on some level, if you're going to have your cake, you have to eat it too, as that expression goes. But, the PA would probably be looking at this and saying, we're seeing more injuries due to wear and tear, and they would know. I don't. You don't. Fans don't. Mm-mm. As we said, Ryan McDonough blocked a shot. That's not due to wear and tear. Puck hits your skate traveling close to 100 miles an hour, you could break a foot.
You could. Partner, let's end with this one because it gets into the Devils a little bit. K-Bay says Timo Meier will be out tonight. What do you guys make of his absence for the Devils, and what could it mean for the Bolts?
Yes, we didn't even get to the Devils. So Timo Meier is missing this game due to personal reasons. So they called up a player from Utica. Utica's had a terrible season in the AHL, but they did just beat Syracuse last night. Prior to that, Syracuse had gone 5-0 against Utica. Yeah. So the guy that they called up is a guy by the name of Xavier Parent. He was their leading scorer. I think he had like 11 or 12 points, and he was leading Utica in scoring. They played over 20 games. So that tells you how much Utica has struggled. This Xavier Parent may do well, may not do well. I don't know. He's not going to be used in the same capacity that Timo Meier is used. Timo Meier is a good player for them. Timo Meier is a top six. Timo Meier plays on the power play. He's a big, strong guy. He has scored against the Lightning, including earlier this year. But I think, you can look at it as well. The Lightning are missing guys as well. So Devils are already without Jack Hughes. They're without Brett Pesce. Like, they've had injuries. Meier is not an injured absence. It's a, personal matter. So does it mean that the Devils can't win tonight? Of course not. They can win. They just got back on the right track, too. I'll close with this, Greg. So the Lightning lost 4 in a row in regulation before winning on Tuesday. Yeah. The Devils had lost 5 in a row in regulation before winning in Ottawa on Tuesday. So they're looking to turn the ship around, too. And they, kind of like the Lightning, had been struggling to score.
Sure.
They, I believe, had 1 goal in 3 games, which is what the Lightning had, too. I should have written that down. The games prior to them winning, they were struggling to score, kind of like the Lightning. They scored 4 in Ottawa to win that game 4-3. So, Lightning have to play well. I mean, that's the bottom line.
Sure.
Devils won 8 in a row earlier the year, starting with a win against the Lightning in the second game of the season. They have a good team.
Did Palat score against
with or without Jack Hughes, with or without Timo Meier.
For sure. Did Palat score against the Lightning last game? I feel like he did, didn't he? Because weren't we talking about he had no goals? No? He's got 2.
Yeah, I think he's got 1 or 2. Yeah.
He's got 2 goals. He is a +1, though. How about that? So he's, from that perspective, it's all good. All right. So we've got that game tonight. You and I are going to be on the airwaves tomorrow. I think we're going to go live to recap it, and we'll get everybody set for the weekend.
Yes, tomorrow. Lightning will be practicing. That will be a practice day. I'm pretty certain because they have the afternoon game on Saturday.
Partner, good job as always, and I will talk to you in a few hours to get ready for this game tonight, and then we'll be on the airwaves tomorrow. Good job, as always.
You too.
Thanks to Steve Versnick, thanks to Jared Johnson, and thanks to you for listening. We always appreciate you guys. Lots of people tuning in to this episode, so continue to tell your friends. This is the place to be when it comes to Lightning hockey. We appreciate you guys. I am Greg Linnelli. You've been listening to Power Lunch on Lightning Radio.